The Life and Times of Theodore Addison, 5th Grade Challenge by Jamaal. Wednesday. We love because He first loved us. Whoever claims to love God but hates his brother or sister is a liar. For whoever does not love their brother or sister whom they have seen cannot love God, whom they have not seen. And He has given us this command: anyone who loves God must love their brother or sister. That was 1 John 4, verse 19 to 21. Mr. Addison closed his Bible, his choice in devotional scriptures obviously directed at Ted. He was still upset at Ted for spraying Veronica and getting suspended for it, but seeing his son's remorse made it easier to forgive his oldest son. The night before, they stood outside and talked about what happened and how Veronica wouldn't even give him a chance to apologize. Dad told him she might just need time. You don't need to live in her prison. It was your responsibility to try to reconcile. But the ball's in her court now, whether she wants to forgive until she figures out what she wants to do. You should just keep living your life and demonstrating the love of God to people. So when she gives me the death glare, I'm supposed to just smile and say, "God bless you"? Come on, Dad, I need the real stuff. I'm serious. Live your life and be happy. You're trying to stop the cycle of vengeance, not look for reasons to get back at her. Do the right thing. It'll get better. Watch. That's it? Ted asked, unsatisfied. Dad turned around to head back in the house as he said, "Hey, sometimes consequences linger. Do better next time, and you won't be in this situation." When Ted arrived at school that day, sports day, the boys were excited, knowing they would likely beat the girls in the water fight. They bragged endlessly how boys were stronger than girls, and that it would be easy to defeat them. The girls, in turn, boasted that many of them were still taller than most boys, and that they were on equal footing, at least for another year. For his part, Ted walked into school, hoping he could avoid the boys' wrath for costing them a win the day before. He had avoided his group chat and social media, so whatever they were talking about, he was in the dark about it. Diamond and Veronica came into the room, both giving Ted the stink eye again, but when he caught them glaring at him, he merely shrugged his shoulders. Some of the boys and girls approached James and Amber to ask if they were willing to target each other in the water fight. Nervous from the pressure, Amber shook her head, while James nodded his head, just to get the throng of classmates off them. That instantly created more disorder, since it seemed unfair to the girls that one of their classmates was compromised. As the teacher walked into the room, he quieted them down and began class. By chance, their class would be the last one to go. Some of the students told the teacher about Amber's unwillingness to participate, and she asked to instead help by handing out towels. In this contest, everyone had a chance to participate, so it seemed fair, but there were now more boys than girls with Amber bowing out. They would need to borrow a girl from another class, and it turned out to be James's sister, Jewel, a fairly athletic girl. Satisfied that there would finally be a resolution today, Mr. Gibson asked, "Class, before we get to our history lesson, since we have to wait till near the end of the day, and I know it's probably hard for you to contain yourselves, can I ask you a question? What are some of the things you learned as you watched the others' performances? I'll start in the back. Leon, tell me something you learned." I learned that girls can build really cool stuff with Legos too. The other boys in the class agreed, still amazed at Alberta's models. She blushed at all the positive attention, and then Mr. Gibson moved on to the next girl. I learned that you never know what people are going through on the inside. I didn't know Diamond didn't feel at home here because her culture was different. Many of the girls sympathized with her, but Diamond waved off their worries. I'm okay, guys, really. I'm just saying I want to be true to myself and be accepted as I am. With that, Mr. Gibson moved on to Edgar. The positive vibes came to an end when the boy said, I learned there's always a way to game the system. The buzzing of the students quickly died down as everyone turned to him. Arms crossed, he waited for Mr. Gibson to ask a follow-up question. Of course, the teacher then asked why he said that and what he meant by it. Mr. Gibson could tell that his feel-good moment bringing the class together was over. Edgar answered, If there aren't any rules, or if the rules aren't ironclad, there's always a loophole I can use to get the upper hand, like Veronica did. Dude, even when that came into play, you guys still won that round. Learn to live with the results, you sore loser. We won the other rounds fair and square, Veronica said. We don't know that for sure. If James wasn't distracted, maybe he would have won us the speed drills too. You should be disqualified for what you did. A shouting match then broke out between the boys and girls until the teacher whistled. When the class was silent, he told them to take out their history books so they could begin their lesson. He thought there was no getting through to them and wished the day would hurry up and end. For the rest of the school day, Ted and Veronica avoided each other. Veronica had been rehearsing her plan of attack all morning. She said virtually nothing all day, except during the lunch break when Diamond asked if she was okay. Without looking at her, Veronica said, Revenge is a dish? Best served cold, Diamond said, watching Veronica bore a hole through Ted with her eyes as they walked into the cafeteria. Ted hadn't noticed. Diamond's scowl at Ted changed, though, when Derek noticed her and waved. She couldn't believe Ted and Derek were friends. He could do so much better. Fortunately, Veronica had been so busy hating Ted that she didn't pester her about her budding friendship with Derek. James and Amber didn't interact much, trying to avoid everyone's attention. They would have to settle for friendly smiles and winks, but nothing more. They would hang out together again that afternoon, this time at the kosher restaurant. Diamond wasn't looking forward to the water fight, especially since she knew her hair would get messed up. She was under no illusion that she would survive until the end. Derek, though, couldn't wait for the water fight. He pictured himself going Rambo on his opponents, spraying everyone mercilessly. He'd go easy on Diamond, though, if he had the drop on her. Until the time came for the water fight, Mr. Gibson kept everyone busy with classwork and studying. No more outbursts, no more squabbles. If anyone talked out of turn, he threatened to remove them from the competition. It was, therefore, a much quieter day from that point on. Then the hour came. It was the last hour of school, and the other 4 classes have had their competitions. Each round was over fairly quickly, no more than 15 minutes. The boys in the other classes won 2 of the 4 matches, with one class being disqualified because both sides cheated. The score was 16-15, girls clinging to their lead. Whoever won Mr. Gibson's class face-off would win for the whole grade. No tie was possible. All day, Veronica had time to stew and now wanted Ted's head on a platter. But she wouldn't be out of control about it. That would only make her more mistake-prone. She had to be smart about her assault, starting with her strengths. She could think quickly while Ted thought deeply. She wouldn't allow him any time to make sense of what was going on, and she would never give him a chance to predict what she would do next. Stick and move. One shot was all it took, and after officially taking him out, if she got the chance, she would dance on his grave. The school courtyard was a mix of grassy fields with a mound along the fence and concrete pavement closer to the walls of the building. There were plenty of places to hide around the field, with short, concrete walls here and there. In the middle of the courtyard was a garden with a few trees and shrubs. It was a good hiding place, but everyone knew it was prime real estate for hiding, so no one expected anyone to even try. The students lined up on the pavement, girls on one side and boys on the other, with fully loaded water guns and buckets of water balloons in the middle. The teachers knew most students would get eliminated in the initial melee. In fact, that was the point. They wanted to avoid injuries to the students. In addition, there were water guns, super soakers, and other items scattered around the courtyard. The rules were clear. You get hit, you're out, and must immediately drop your items. You don't get eliminated for indirect splashes. You had to take a direct shot. If you break the rules, you're out, and you automatically lose another teammate. With that, the teachers counted down, and the kids got in position to sprint for the water weapons. "Field first," Ted whispered through gritted teeth to Derek and James. The whistle blew, and the walls of kids darted for the weapons in the middle. The three boys instead made a beeline for the grassy field, while Veronica tugged the shirts of Diamond and Jewel to prevent them from running to the middle. She led them to the back wall, where they found the water weapons they needed, while the students in the foray splashed each other. Within 10 seconds, only 5 boys and 5 girls remained. The students trudged to the sidelines, kicking themselves for not thinking ahead. For all their excitement, they only got a few seconds to play, and for the rest of the match, they had to watch from the sidelines, wet. Amber handed out towels as they joined her, no longer feeling bad for her decision to sit this one out since she knew she'd have done the same as the group. In the field, the boys found a bucket lid that could be useful as a shield, and on the wall, a water hose. This would be a game ender if there was somewhere to connect the hose. The bucket lid provided the defense they'd surely need, but it's not like the girls wouldn't aim elsewhere to score a hit. The water hose, though, had stopping power. The girls wouldn't dare get close, and not even the bucket lid would stop it. But where to connect the hose? Ted scanned the area and finally found a spigot. On the far side of the courtyard. The girls sighed. "It would be over there," Derek said as he slapped his forehead. Get down, Ted told them, spotting Veronica and her crew coming towards the field. They lowered themselves so the girls couldn't see them over the mound, and crawled in their direction. If they could get an advantage, they'd spray and eliminate all of them at once, and their path to the water spigot would be cleared, all but guaranteeing their victory. "I think I hear them," Veronica whispered as she pulled the girls lower. Making sure they were out of the boys' view, they crawled up the other side of the mound, ready to splash the boys at a moment's notice. And if the opportunity was there, Veronica would dump the bucket of water balloons on Ted after eliminating him. Both groups heard frantic shouts from the students along the sidelines, girls and boys trying to warn their teammates of the other group. It was tough to make sense of it as they were crawling up their sides of the mound. But one thing they did pick up on was the sound of shuffling in the grass. Derek knew they were there. "Gotcha!" Derek and Diamond shouted as they stood up and attacked. He sprayed her in the face while she nailed him with 2 water balloons in the chest. Then they realized they were both eliminated. Their partners panicked and scrambled back to their sides of the field, behind cover. Once behind a concrete block, Ted groaned, realizing his mistake. "We could have given him the shield. He was the furthest ahead of us." Meanwhile, Veronica, behind a different concrete block, said, "I should have just dumped the bucket over the hill and took them all out." Derek and Diamond trudged off the field to the sidelines. Diamond was upset she got sprayed in the face, and Derek tried to apologize. She laughed it off and said she had fun as she squeezed water out of her hair. At least it wasn't back to square one again for Derek. Behind the concrete block, Ted and James tried to think of a new plan. They still had the bucket lid and the water hose, but they needed a way to get to the spigot without getting soaked. "I got it," Ted said. "They don't know we have the water hose. If we charge at them like we want to attack them head on, they'll probably run and find a better position. That's when you can hook the hose up and we'll really be in business." "What if they see the water hose? They will learn what we are doing," James answered. "Roll the hose up and keep it behind the lid. Pretend to be my guard and I'll run at them, spraying like a madman." Before James could open his mouth to second-guess him, Ted said, "Just do it. It'll work." James swallowed his tongue and embraced the fact that they were going to lose. He charged from behind the block, with Ted following, shouting as he sprayed. Veronica and Jewel had been creeping out of hiding, ready to attack again. But hearing Ted's war cry and seeing the two boys charging, James with the shield, made the two girls panic and run away from the field entirely to regroup. When Veronica saw that the boys weren't pursuing them, she spotted the water hose as James started to hook it up to the spigot. Knowing what was about to happen, she called for the two remaining girls to join her and Jewel. The girls came rushing from behind concrete blocks they used for cover, leaving behind one boy they had cornered. They were all going to lay siege to Ted and James before they could connect the hose. James's hands shook as he hurried to connect to the spigot, and Ted started taking incoming fire. Ted blocked the spray from Veronica, and a water balloon from Jewel missed its mark. The other two girls then tried to spray him, looking for an opening, while Veronica kept the pressure on. One girl tried to aim at Ted's legs. Another tried to aim at James, hiding behind Ted. Then Veronica's water ran out. She retreated to get more water. And then finally, the hose was connected. The water burst from the hose, and James quickly grabbed it and stood to begin his assault. But just as soon as he stood up, he took a water balloon to the hip, eliminating him. It was his own sister that nailed him. She giggled after he looked up and realized it was his own sister who threw the balloon. "Thanks, James. Good work," Ted said as he continued to hold off the girls' fire. As James walked to the sidelines, he looked at how many of the students had been eliminated before him. He counted them and saw he was one of the last 4 boys to survive. Amber greeted him with an open towel that she wrapped around him with a hug. Just that quickly, his swelling pride turned into embarrassment as everyone swooned over them. Ted grabbed the water hose and began spraying far and wide, instantly soaking 2 of the girls, one of them being Jewel. One of the other girls ran towards the man to get away and find cover as Ted gave chase. With the spray distance and the length of the hose, he could easily cover 70% of the courtyard. Veronica was still getting water when she saw Ted charging at her teammate over the hill. Then she spotted a tuft of hair sticking up over a concrete block just a few feet from her. She was being hunted. She thought quickly and grabbed the bucket of water she had been refilling with and flung it at the block the boy was hiding behind. He was instantly soaked and stood up to leave. At the same moment, Ted got the girl who was trying to get away. He drenched her with a wide shot she couldn't escape. The whistle blew again, stopping the match. Ted and Veronica froze in place as the referee walked over to turn off the spigot, making the water hose useless. He announced that when a team was down to their final member, the powerful items would be removed. The only things that would stay were water guns and water balloons. It was the moment she was waiting for. Veronica and Ted returned to the paved area where the match began, their teammates looking on. She was ready to end him.
"Let's go, Ted! Let's go, Ted!"
The boys chanted.
"Let's go, Veronica! Let's go!"
The girls chanted. As the two stood opposite each other, their choice of water weapons in hand, they waited for the whistle, glaring at each other. The whistle sounded. but neither did anything. They waited for the other to make the first move. Realizing they weren't doing anything, Ted tried to reason with her again about yesterday.
You know, it didn't have to be like...
Shut up and fight, Veronica said as she reared back and fired a water balloon at him. Veronica's opening salvo was a water balloon tornado as she twirled and twirled, firing off water balloons at Ted, some barely missing him as they flew by. One by his eye, another by the waist. He had no time to even think about going on the offensive. Then, as she threw one balloon past his face, she threw another high in the air, followed by another towards his head. Ted dodged the two aimed directly at him, but then a balloon landed just 2 inches to his right. He had no idea it was even coming at him. Veronica snapped her fingers in frustration, while the other students oohed at her near miss. Veronica was out of balloons, but some were in the field, another bucket with which to resume her assault. She darted away while Ted gave chase, spraying at her, but not connecting since she was too quick and just out of range. When Veronica got to the bucket, instead of stopping at it, she scooped a water balloon out of it and whipped it at Ted in one motion. Ted snapped his head back as the balloon passed over him, but he reflexively put up his hands to cover his face as the balloon approached. It was the same hand he held his water gun in. The water balloon knocked the gun out of his hand, and seeing that change in his fortune, she grabbed another water balloon and threw it at him as he tried to retrieve his weapon. He dodged again and fled, abandoning the water gun. She grabbed the bucket and gave chase, picking up the water gun too. Back on the pavement, Ted looked for another water gun or anything he could fight with. He ran to the back wall, hoping something was stashed there. But before he could even look there, he felt her behind him and turned around to see her hurling another balloon at him. The look in her eyes told him this wasn't just about winning. It was personal. And if he didn't know better, he'd think that water balloon was on fire. He dodged another blistering throw, knowing it was only a matter of time before she connected. Then he dived behind a concrete block to regroup, if just for a second. It was the same block his teammate hid behind before he got splashed by Veronica. As luck would have it, there was a water pistol sitting there. Just what he needed. Veronica crept up to the block again, knowing that if she finally finished him off, she'd win the entire match for the girls. Then afterward, she'd dump a bucket of water balloons on him while he was getting dried off. He'd finally pay for humiliating her in front of everyone. As she snuck up to Ted's hiding place, Ted quietly shuffled away, looking for a place to launch his attack. Once in place, Veronica spiked a balloon down where she thought he'd be. When the water splattered over the concrete, and there was no yelp or shout, she peered over the top, surprised he wasn't there. Then she looked up to find Ted staring her down with the water gun pointed in her face. "Face, chest, or legs?" he asked. She was beaten, and she knew it. She relaxed her shoulders, took a breath, and said, "Legs." The girls watching from the sidelines, who'd put their hope in her, saw that they were going to lose. The boys, on the other hand, were anxious to celebrate their comeback victory. All that waited was the splash of water in the whistle. Ted pointed at her legs and pulled the trigger, but nothing came out. A look of horror came over his face as their eyes met. Panicking, Ted ran off to find another water gun or balloons, while a reinvigorated Veronica grabbed a balloon from the bucket and hurled it just past his feet, blocking off his path. He was trapped. He slipped on the grass and fell to the ground as Veronica marched up to him, pulling the bucket of water balloons with her. Ted scanned the surrounding area, desperate to find anything as he tried to get up, but by then it was too late. She was standing right over him in seconds. The other students looked on as Veronica asked him the same question. Face, chest, or legs? Ted looked around one more time and saw a water gun over in the field by the fence. Veronica saw him looking at it too. Knowing victory was certain, she taunted him. "Go get it. I'll give you a 3-second head start." she said with a friendly smile. Not so secretly, she was going to shoot him in the back. She didn't just want a win, she wanted theatrics. Ted started to stand, asking why she was giving him an opening, certain that she was trying to embarrass him. He knew if he tried to run, she'd shoot at him, but he was going to zigzag, so she would miss. But if that happened, she'd have to give chase, and that area of the field had been soaked with water. She'd slip. I just want things to be fair, Veronica said in a friendly voice again. Then she showed her true feelings as her smile turned into a frown as she said, "Go get it."
If you're gonna spray me, just spray me, Ted said. Let's be honest. Even if I got up and ran for it, you'd shoot me.
Precisely.
And if you shot at me and missed,
I won't.
You'd chase me.
And catch you.
Or, more likely, you'd slip and fall. I sprayed this area a lot with the water hose, and well, I know you sprain your ankle a lot. It wouldn't be worth the risk, so just go ahead and spray me. You win. Just take it. You win. Spray me in the legs, would you?
She hadn't expected him to concede defeat. She was certain he'd fight to the death if he had to. Instead, he's giving up because he didn't want her to get hurt? The thought swirled in her head as once again her mind and heart were at odds. Are you seeing this? This is what we were looking for. He's actually showing some maturity, her heart said. That's cool, but we need to spray him first, her mind said. No, return the favor. Show some maturity yourself. Not after all the stuff we've been through. Finish him. Forgive him. Why? You needed Bookworm to forgive you, in case you forgot. Little Miss Missionary Kid. Besides, he's been trying to make peace with you since yesterday, but you just won't let it go. He humiliated me in front of the whole class. It might happen again if you don't make this right. Do it. Double elimination. Get the bucket.
Our team would still win, so what's the point?
It's a gesture of goodwill and peace. Get the bucket. Staring at Ted, the water gun still trained on his face, Veronica suddenly flung it away. From the sidelines, their classmates looked on confused. Was she throwing the match? Did Ted say something to her that made her give up? Had they confessed their love for each other or something? They couldn't tell, but they watched as Veronica lifted the bucket of balloons over their head and turned it over, dumping all its contents on both of them. After all the water balloons fell on their heads, Veronica flung the bucket away and wrapped Ted in a tight hug. Ted was surprised at first, but then, before he knew it, he was melting in her arms. He quickly got a hold of himself and pulled back, asking why she eliminated both of them. I gotta admit, I do a lot of bad stuff, Veronica said, but you showed that you still cared about me. That's the kind of friend I'd like to have. She shrugged as the whistle sounded, signaling the end of the game. The girls cheered wildly because with the double elimination, the match ended in a tie, meaning they won the overall game. But then, one boy, Edgar, crawled out from the garden at the center of the courtyard, from the same spot everyone thought no one would hide in.
Help me wipe off. I've got ants in my shirt,
he said to the boys as they gathered to celebrate with him.
And that's the match, one referee shouted. Boys win!
When Veronica saw that her generosity was used against her, she was livid. Ted tried to say he had no idea there was another boy hiding, but she didn't believe him. She stormed back into the school, not even grabbing a towel to dry off with. Some of the boys gathered around Ted and patted him on the back.
Good work with the kamikaze, one boy said. Beautifully, dare I say. artfully done."
When Ted asked them what really happened, Edgar told him,
"We knew you had a soft spot for her. We couldn't bet on you following through and taking her out. We made other arrangements and had to leave you in the dark. Sorry, bud, but hey, we won thanks to you."
As the school day ended, all the classes gathered again in the auditorium where the final results were announced. 17 to 16 boys. Veronica stood in her chair as she reflected on Ted's betrayal of her trust.
"See, everyone? After all that bragging and all that bickering and fighting, you all are so closely matched. The differences are barely noticeable. So all this talk about the girls being better or the boys being better doesn't really matter. But what I saw was something different," Mr. Gibson said. "I saw friendships develop, love blossom, talents come to light, and I saw people finding themselves."
James and Amber sagged in their seats as other people looked at them when Mr. Gibson talked about love blossoming. Would the attention ever end?
"I saw people really grow as human beings. You may not realize it yet, but many of you have changed for the better as a result of this contest. And that's what I wanted to accomplish with this. It was never about settling a score. It was about learning about yourselves and learning about each other, and becoming better people, more loving and respectful of others, even when they aren't like you. Why? Because everyone is made in God's image. We all deserve basic decency and respect just on that fact alone. Get it? So, you've got an extended weekend. Come back next week with those lessons in tow. We are dismissed."
The students got up to mingle and head home. Some students talked with each other about the projects they saw demonstrated from the Hobbies Day competition, while others talked about TV shows they found that another person liked. Diamond and Derek signed each other's scouting report yearbooks. While everyone was talking and Mr. Gibson looked on satisfied with his work, Veronica approached Ted. Ted nervously laughed as he told Veronica,
"You gotta believe me, I had no idea what was going on then."
"It's okay, don't sweat it," she said. "Hey, real quick, close your eyes. I have a surprise for you." Not sure what she wanted to show him, Ted closed his eyes, at least happy she believed him and still wanted to be friends. Just as soon as he did, though, he felt a cold, wet smack in the face. She slapped him with a water balloon, the loud clap filling the room. Everyone froze, then laughed, while the teachers looked on in shock. They were worried the fighting was far from over. While the students laughed, Veronica said, "You expect me to believe you didn't have a hand in the one key moment that won you the game? Give me a break!" She stormed off. There would be no friendship between them. At least not today. James and Amber held hands as they headed for the exits. James was excited to show Amber his favorite kosher restaurant in the city, Deli Maven. As soon as he opened the doors, though, a water balloon splashed them both in the faces. Then all the doors flew open to reveal the 6th graders, armed to the teeth with super soakers, water balloons, and buckets. A hit squad of about 10 students surged into the auditorium, dumping buckets on the 5th graders, splashing them, spraying them, bombing them. Once out of water, the auditorium was soaking wet, and the 5th graders were dripping with anger. The 6th graders ran from the hall laughing, but not before the last one out pulled the fire alarm, turning on the emergency sprinklers in the ceiling as the siren wailed. The furious students pursued the 6th graders while the teachers tried to restore calm, leaving an astonished Mr. Gibson standing alone in the auditorium as he got rained on, thinking maybe he was too optimistic about the kids changing for the better. He sat down, enjoyed the shower, and listened to the fire alarm. He knew he'd look back on that day sometime in the future and laugh. But that day wasn't today. And his $450 suit was almost certainly ruined now. Instead of getting mad, he muttered,
I am so calling off Monday.
The end. Thanks for listening to this presentation of the life and times of Theodore Addison 5th grade challenge. I'm your narrator, Ardin Patterson, and the author is Jamaal. It was such a pleasure to bring you this story, as it's been in the work for many years. If you enjoyed the story, we hope you'll share it with others. You can also read the ebook for free if you go to addisonbooks.com. Before you go, though, we want to give you a sneak preview of future books. Here's the first one. We touched a bit on Ted's past in 5th grade challenge. Now it's time to unpack that story. My New Home features a lonely genius desperate to stop the bullying he was enduring at school. Ted embarks on secret missions to build new inventions to deter his assailants, but things go too far when he catches the eye of the U.S. government. What started as a workaround to a personal problem blows up into a national security emergency as Ted teams up with his friends and foes alike to save his new home, Miracle City. Next, we have the direct follow-up to 5th grade challenge, a summertime story called Operation Mapleview. After finally finishing the school year, Veronica is anxious to go back to Canada, if just for a visit. When her parents say no, planning instead to go to Indonesia, Veronica begs Ted to fly her home directly, and he obliges. The secret trip is cut short when Ted abandons her in Ontario after he had enough of her constant teasing. Veronica will need to convince Ted to come back for her, or she'll have to find another way home alone, without getting caught. One thing you'll notice with this series is that it will bounce back and forth between adventure books and slice-of-life books. My New Home and Operation Mapleview are adventure books, where we track the spiritual, emotional, and social development of the characters through the harrowing experiences they go through. 5th grade challenge is a slice-of-life book, where we see their development through their interactions with each other on a daily basis. The next book falls into this category. In The Average Genius, Ted's a 6th grader now, and he's settled nicely into his new life in his new town with his new friends at his new school. Now it's time to shake things up again when his parents push him to transfer to a school for gifted children, hoping to open the widest possible doors for him. As much as he loves the gifted school, he feels the weight of the world on his shoulders as he prepares to make a life-altering decision that'll either tear him away from the friends he's formed strong bonds with, or flush away a brighter future his parents sacrificed for. There may be no right or wrong answer to the question of where he should go, but The Average Genius is going to explore how we make decisions and the nuance that goes into it. Parents, if you join the email list at addisonbooks.com or join the Addison Books Facebook page, you'll get updates when each book comes out, along with helpful articles to strengthen your children's spiritual walk and decision-making process. For now, thanks again for listening. We hope you'll join us for the next adventures in the life and times of Theodore Addison.